talking earlier, I believe the Chargers are the best team in the NFL playoffs that probably can't win a Super Bowl. And then I go back and I look at Harbaugh's teams everywhere. Stanford didn't have great receivers. The Niners had Michael Crabtree. They weren't loaded. Michigan won a natty. They didn't even throw a pass at Penn State. I look at their weapons and think, God, they need a tight end. They need a running back. They need another receiver. Do they have enough juice to win 3 games, 4 games, do you think?
That's tough. It's an interesting point you make. Like, they're going to have to play Buffalo. They're going to have to play Baltimore. They're going to just don't know that they're there yet. Like, I believe in Jim Harbaugh. I think he's done a great job setting a great foundation. I've been saying it forever. Herbert is amazing. He's everything you're looking for in a quarterback. It's one of the reasons I was so high on Drake May, because he reminds me a lot of Justin Herbert. No, I think it's an interesting point you bring, but to me, I just think that the class of the AFC, there's a separation line when you talk about Kansas City and you talk about Baltimore and you talk about Buffalo. But the reason I believe that's in that separation is the quarterback. And so at some point, I don't know if it's this year, at some point, Justin Herbert is going to have to kind of like morph into, yes, the Harbaugh way of doing things, but also kind of getting in that legit, like on the podium of the upper echelon guys in the AFC. Is he top 5? Yeah, no doubt. Is he on the podium? I don't think you can put him on the podium yet with those other guys I mentioned.
Of course you can. That's absurd. He's been in the worst situation out of all those other players. So I've already gone on so many rants about that, and I'm just not gonna keep doing it. At least not right now. I just don't have the energy to do that. But he is there. He has not had the situation. He has not had the team, the coaching, etc., etc. And even now, when he has the coach, it's like this team is they are many pieces away from being able to make this happen. But with that said, there is a possibility that they could shock some people this year. So, okay. This is interesting because this can kind of go in so many different directions potentially. But if this is obviously like a very like soft, this was updated, yesterday or 2 days ago. So, this is what the bracket can potentially look like. And the Chargers can still get the 5 seed. If they do, you gotta love them against the Houston Texans. You gotta love them. But what's so interesting is that they will be a low enough seed where the chances of them now beating the team above them is actually pretty high, because I just think the Texans have just not been a good team right now, at least relative to what some of these other teams are doing. Then they play the Kansas City Chiefs. We know the Chargers can hold their own against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's been proven, that's been shown. They've done so even without them being healthy. So it's right there. Now you are talking about this kind of like divisional matchup. Who's to say what's going to happen? Now, if they're a lower seed and they now have to beat Baltimore, and then they would again, have to then beat Kansas City or then beat Buffalo. Like, again, it all depends on where this seeding is, because it could end up being a situation where they have to essentially play like just all these teams like one after the other, and they still will most likely have to play at least 2 out of the 3 big monsters in terms of Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City. But in terms of kind of how it unfolds, in a lot of ways, if they're big, really true first legitimate hard playoff game, because I'm not going to act like the Houston Texans would be a walk in the park, but relative to the Chiefs or something, it certainly would be. I think there would be a legitimate chance that the Chargers could like roll the Texans, or again, it's hard to really try to figure out exactly where all these seedings are going to be, like whether it be the Steelers or trying to think of any other random matchups that could potentially happen. It probably seems like, based on where the seeding can unfold, their chances of playing the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Texans are probably the highest chances of that happening. I think that if they face the Steelers, and again, I think the way how that would have to happen is that the Chargers would stay put, Baltimore would have to lose, and the Steelers would win, and then they would now go. The Ravens would drop down to 5, and the Steelers would then be 3. So, but then I think again, you're in a position where if you can actually get an easier win, again, quotes, easier win, that first round, and be unscathed, fired up, energized. That was our first playoff game. Herbert got rolling, hardball, let's go. And the first game that you're going to play is against the Chiefs now. Like, I think there would be tremendous momentum. And there would be tremendous belief of like, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. I think if you, I mean, to be fair, if they had to face, say, the Ravens or something in that first round, and if they ended up beating them, that would potentially be like, I don't want to say like an exhausting game because it would also be momentum building because if you knock out the Ravens and you would be like, all right, let's go. But I just, something about getting like a little bit of a layup to a degree where you're like, you're able to kind of get this win, be fired up, be unscathed. You're not beaten down by a hard physical, team. You get that win, and now you go to KC right off the bat. I just think it kind of can really bode well for them. If they're in a weird position where they're maybe a slightly higher seed, let's say they go to the 5 seed, and let's say whoever's now the 6 seed beats the 3 seed, and now the 6 seed goes to KC, and now Baltimore goes to the Buffalo Bills. I just think it'll land differently, honestly. I really do. I think if the Chargers have to end up playing the Buffalo Bills in that next, in the divisional round, I think it'll just land a little bit more differently. Don't get me wrong, it would be box office to see the Kansas City Chiefs versus Chargers in the AFC Championship game, but I just think their chances of winning increase significantly if they can get an easier win and you kind of get one of those really good feeling, convincing, like, man, we just won 35-7 wild card round. Like, here we go. Kind of similar to what happened with the Green Bay Packers. And then they had to then go up and face the 49ers. Like, I think that bodes well for them. And so I think it did bode well for them, even though obviously the Packers didn't get the outcome they wanted, but it was there for the taking, without a doubt. And I just think that that's where the Chargers could be if how the seeding unfolds, if they get to see the Chiefs that, in that next round divisional. The Chiefs will be off an extended bye. There's still some questions maybe around the Chiefs. The Chargers will have this momentum. They would be fired up. There would be an insane belief that they can do this. And then again, it all just comes down to that game, whether it's a Saturday or Sunday, like it'll just all come down to it, and I think there would be a true possibility. But if it was one of those situations where it kind of unfolds in a way where like they have a tough wild card round, and then they got to go to Buffalo, and if they beat Buffalo, and then they got to go to, say, Kansas City, like, or again, you could look at it from a different way where like Kansas City gets knocked out in the divisional round because they have to face the Ravens or something, and now the Ravens knock them out, and then you have to face like the Chargers would face the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, like, and of course you have the hardball kind of type of setup there as well, like, I don't know. I can see it, but I just think the path is actually like there's a few more variables that are slightly out of the Chargers' control that might seem like it may not matter, but I think like if it worked out their way, you would look back and be like, oh, you know what? This actually was really good that this happened this way because of X, Y, and Z. Whereas I think like the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Ravens, they just have a little bit more resilience to some of these extra factors. But again, make no mistake, the Buffalo Bills have to face the Baltimore Ravens in the divisional round. Like, that's no easy matchup either. If the Buffalo Bills have to face the Bengals, and the Bengals get in, and they're the 7th seed, like, that's brutal too. But that's another thing. I don't know if it would be possible. I guess it probably would be. Again, this is hard to figure out exactly, but I guess the Bengals could go in. If the Bengals knock out the Buffalo Bills, now they're the 7th seed. They would now face Kansas City, and they beat the Buffalo Bills. So then the Chargers would potentially be playing, again, depending on where the Chargers end up in their seeding, like the Chargers could end up playing in the divisional round now, saying, the Ravens, the Steelers, no, I guess the Ravens, the Steelers, or maybe the Texans. Like, it could be a really, like, now maybe potentially even easier divisional round, and then the conference championship game. It's like maybe you're going up against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, and now you have an easy defense to go up against, and you have a tough and the Chargers have a tough defense to try to slow down Joe Burrow. Like we can do the math. Like we can find the ways through this. It's just a harder path for sure. So I hope we get some of this, honestly. I know I kind of laid out a lot of different scenarios, and might have not been the easiest to follow, because we're at the point where it's just like we don't really know where the seating is going to be, what exactly are the teams going to be. But there are legitimate scenarios where I think it could, like, actually be, I don't want to say favorable for the Chargers to win those games and go the distance, but it wouldn't be improbable either. And I don't even think I would be able to even say unlikely. It would just be harder, and I wouldn't say that they're favored to do it over maybe another team or two, but I would say it is without a doubt the realm of possibility, and not in the sense where it's like anything can happen any given Sunday. No, like, it could be there where, like, you would reach the point as a Chargers fan where you're like, man, I'm bought in. Like, at first I wouldn't have been upset if they lost in the first round or the second round, but now I'm kind of like, no, man, like, there's a path here. Like, we can actually get to the AFC Championship game or something. Like we were given a gift when the Bengals knocked out the Chiefs or something. Like you're like, no, like, we got this. Like, we can do this. So, you'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds, but that's what makes the playoffs so exciting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chargers, kind of what this franchise's trajectory is right now, and do you think that they could make a legit playoff run? And like Colin said, can they win 3-4 games, which is winning a Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.